on behalf of Unity Hospice. Today we are interviewing Lucinda Clark. The date is August 25th, 2017, and this interview is being conducted in Lena, Illinois. The purpose of this interview is to record the veteran experience of Lucinda Clark for the Veteran History Project. Can you please tell us your full name?
Lucinda Catherine Clark.
And your date of birth?
May 11th, 1983.
Okay. What branch of service were you in?
The U.S. Navy.
Okay. What years did you serve?
2001 to 2007.
Okay. And what was the highest rank that you attained?
Petty Officer 3rd Class.
And what war or conflict did you serve during?
Iraqi Freedom.
Okay. All right. And you go by Lucy, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Lucy, where were you born?
Freeport, Illinois.
Okay. And what are the names of your parents?
Renette and Kevin. Actually, it's Renette and Todd Mummer, and then Kevin Simpson.
Okay. And what did they do for a living, or what do they do?
My mom was a nurse and just recently retired after 31 years. My stepdad, Todd, worked at Kelly Springfield Tires for about 20 years and retired. And now he drives truck for the local farmers. And my real dad, Kevin, used to work at a motorcycle shop in Chicago. And he had some issues, massive heart attacks and whatnot, so he ended up having to retire as well.
Okay. All right. And how many siblings do you have?
I have 3 sisters and 1 stepbrother.
Okay, what are their names?
Adrian is the oldest, and then you have Mariah, Greg, and Amelia.
Okay. And did any of them serve in the military?
They did. 4
Okay.
out of the 5 kids served military.
Okay.
Mariah, the second oldest, is a United States Navy, and she still is in the military. She's active duty. My brother Greg was in the Army at Fort Hood in Texas, and my little sister was in the Air Force stationed in Alaska.
Okay, so what made you choose the Navy?
My sister Mariah.
She talked you into it?
She did. When she was 16, my parents signed her contracts for her to enlist in the military. Her junior year, she went to the military. As soon as she turned 17, she left for boot camp. And she was stationed her first 2 years on the USS Emery Land in Sicily. And she had told me all the amazing things that she had encountered while she was there. One was getting baptized in the Jordan River over there.
Oh, that's cool.
And that kind of set me where I wanted to go to the
That sealed
Navy.
the deal for you, huh?
And she went in as an undesignated seaman, and then she picked
What does that mean?
You go in as an undesignated seaman, you don't really have a job. You don't have a career you're working towards. You get to pick one after, I think it's 2 years of being in.
Okay.
So then she picked a culinary specialist, and that's what I went in as.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So what were you doing before you entered the service?
I went to college for probably a semester and a half, and I didn't like it.
No.
I wanted to experience the world, and I wanted to experience things that I would never experience living at home.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't afford to see all the countries I've seen just by working at a salary paid job or,
Right.
so that's why I joined the military.
And how old were you?
I was 18 when I signed. I was 19 when I left.
Okay. All right.
So.
What did your mom think when you told her that you were going to follow in the footsteps?
She was like, please go. No.
Right?
Just
hurry.
She was happy, but she already had one that was gone and away from home, so it kind of gave her a little bit of mixed emotions. But my stepdad, Todd, was in the United States Navy for, I want to say 3 or 4 years, and he was all about it. He told me to be a boiler technician, which I was not prone to be a boiler tech.
That's far from culinary.
No, not at all. I couldn't do that manly work, but she was very supportive of me when I decided to do it. She didn't think I was really going to do it.
Right.
And then when I started going to the recruiter, she was like, oh, she's really serious about this.
Wow.
So she was very supportive about it. It was really hard to leave home because I was so used to being there, her doing my laundry and cooking, but it was it was an experience going through it with my mom.
Right. Aw. And what about the day you left for boot camp? Do you remember that day? Tell me about what your feelings, your thoughts.
I went to the day I left for boot camp. It wasn't actually I left for boot camp. I went to MEPS, which was where you do your physicals and all your paperwork.
Right.
And that was an experience that I probably thought I would never encounter. You're in a room pretty much naked with a bunch of women where you're getting physicals and they're looking you over from head to toe, hearing, vision, everything. It was something that I had never seen before in my entire life. But
were you kind of wondering, what am I doing?
I was like, should I back out now? Is it too late? But then they started giving you all your shots and everything. And when you stood up there with your hand up, my mom was up there for me, and my stepdad was there when I did it. And it was probably the most amazing thing to see my parents out there when I signed all my contracts. The day I left was after we did all of our paperwork and everything. They loaded us all on a bus, and it was, as soon as you got on the bus, it was shut your mouth and don't say a word until we get to where we're going. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm so used to talking back. What do I do? And I was extremely scared. I was petrified because I didn't know what to do. And the looks of other people's faces were the exact same as mine.
Yeah,
like,
so you kind of knew you had that comfort of you were all in the same boat.
It was, and as soon as it was okay because boot camp was in Chicago.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, where you did it.
Boot camp was at RTC, which is in Chicago, Great Lakes.
Okay.
And my dad lived probably 30 minutes from there. So it was comforting when my dad was right down the road.
Right.
And then when I graduated from there, it was amazing because my dad was right there. So, I got to see him, and it was right there in Chicago.
How long was your training, your initial training?
My boot camp, I got set back 2 weeks because I failed the damage control selection of it. Firefighting. I failed the part of it. I couldn't pass one of the tests, so I got set back 2 weeks.
Okay.
So mine ended up being 14 weeks long.
14 weeks.
Yes,
okay.
it was awful when I got set back 2 weeks.
So what kind of stuff did you do during your initial training? I mean, what was your? I know it's a lot of running and exercise.
It's a lot of PT, physical training, but there was a lot of running, a lot of sit-ups, a lot of push-ups. There was you did damage control, which was like the firefighting. You did swimming. You did gun control and gun quals. You had to go into the gas chamber, which I did twice because I got set back 2 weeks, so I did it twice. It was awful.
Oh my gosh, awful. I can't imagine having
the second time wasn't nearly as bad because I was one of the first ones out, and then I got to watch everybody else come out, and the faces was just hilarious. But and you do classroom work while you're there too. You do bosun mates classes where you learn how to tie knots, where you learn how to make sure that your ship is secure at the docks when you pull into ports. So it was a lot of that. Even though a lot of people weren't going to be a bosun mate, which is a BM, you still had to do it. You still had to graduate those portions. Right. So there was a lot of classroom work. Had
you shot a weapon before that?
Yes.
You had.
Oh,
okay,
God,
so
yeah.
you were
okay.
So you were.
I knew how to shoot. I knew how to shoot them already, so it wasn't anything new. But it was the 50 cals and the big ones. The big guns.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And what was the lifestyle change for you? Like, your mom did your laundry and cooked for you. So when you got there and realized, oh my gosh, this isn't like home. Tell me about the food, just the lifestyle in general.
The lifestyle, I would say, close quarters. There's a bottom rack and a top rack, and you shared it. You had this it was a 2-sided locker. You had the top and your person below you had the bottom. Then it was the same thing on the other side. Everything had to be clean, crisp, folded. Beds had to be folded tight. If they weren't, your trainer person would come in, and they would just tear everything apart. They'd tear your lockers apart. They'd tear your beds apart. Showering was a completely different change for me because you showered with all of the girls there. Right. And it was really awkward because they would give you 5-6 minutes to do it. And you had to get all these women through it at the same time. So it was really awkward for me. You had to iron all of your uniforms on a daily. They all had to be clean and crisp. Your boots had to be shined. Your hair had to be pulled up off of your neck. So if you had long hair, you had to get it up in a tight bun. Meals, you marched to meals. So you stayed in your formation. You were called into meal times with your different divisions. So they went chronological order for those. The meals weren't bad. I probably could have done better with them, but it was, they were serving mass quantities of it. But you only had probably 7 minutes to eat your entire meal, and then you were done. And then you went right back out to training. And it was really hard because when it was snowing, raining, it was rough because you still had to march, and it didn't matter if it was downpouring, thunderstorming, you were still marching to your meals.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about friends? Did you make some good friends during that time? You were all in the same boat together. Did you kind of have a group or a couple people you kind of stuck by?
We all kind of formed like a little sorority of girls. When your division is made up of girls and boys, but of course you're separated. Right. So the girls sometimes would team up with the boys because we did a lot of stuff with them. But there was one girl that her and I were in the same boot camp. We went to A school together, which is our schooling. and then she got stationed somewhere, and I got stationed somewhere, and then we both ended up at our last duty stations together.
Oh, so you started
and I'm still
together
friends with
and
her to this day.
That's awesome.
So it's really crazy on how you meet people. There was a girl that I went to school with in Freeport when I was in 7th and 8th grade, and I hadn't seen her after that. She ended up on the exact same duty station I was at.
Oh.
So you run into some people that you possibly could know because it's such a huge network of people.
Right.
So and you just form those connections. I still have friends on my Facebook that were from boot camp and school.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So then you did boot camp, and then the next stop is A
school.
school. Is that still at Great Lakes, or is that
actually for culinary specialists? It was supposed to be in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
However, they had overbooked. Overcrowded the barracks down there, so we actually got to stay at NTC, which was Naval Training Center, which is right across the street from RTC.
Oh. Okay.
So I actually stayed in Chicago, and what they did was they bused us 5 days a week to Kendall College in Evanston. So I went to actual culinary school for my training instead of going through. It was still a Navy program. They still had petty officers and officers that were over top us that oversaw all of it, but our instructors and professors were actually culinary specialist instructors.
Whereas if you had to go,
you would be taught by military people.
Oh, okay.
We were actually taught by civilian people at the culinary school, and it was amazing because my aunt and uncle lived in Evanston. My dad was 30 minutes away, so on the weekends when we were off of school, I could just go to my dad's house and I could stay at his house for the weekend.
So so during boot camp you couldn't leave,
no,
correct?
You could not leave.
But then when you go to A school, you do your thing during
A school, you have your liberty, which you can go out on the weekends.
Okay.
Sometimes they wouldn't let you leave. It depended on how you were doing in school. So like if you were going through school and you were getting in trouble and you were messing up and you weren't doing what you're supposed to, they would take your liberty away from you for the weekend. So I kept on the straight and narrow because I wanted to go see my dad and see my family.
Right.
So and A school lasted 2 months. I had mine extended another month because I was doing so well and my duty station wasn't ready for me yet.
Okay.
So I had mine extended through December.
Oh, okay.
So it was nice. So I went from the beginning of October until the end of December.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so almost about 3 months.
And had you had culinary experience before you went to A school, or was it kind of clean slate?
I didn't have any culinary for mass quantities of food and whatnot. I cooked at home with my mom, my grandma, just random things at home, but it was nothing deboning a chicken or a duck or cleaning a chicken off. I was like, oh, what is this stuff? But they taught you everything you need to know in order to work on a ship to make mass quantities of food.
Okay. So during boot camp and A school, obviously A school you got to see your family on the weekends, but during boot camp, were you able to communicate at all with your family? Your
first 2 weeks at boot camp is getting your checking accounts all set up. Okay. Choosing a bank that you want to go through. If you want your GI bill, your Montgomery GI bill for school, you have to sign paperwork for it. The first 2 weeks was a lot of paperwork. Okay. Getting used to a lot of stuff, getting used to your classrooms. After your first 2 weeks, on Sundays was kind of like your relaxed day.
Okay.
Everybody went to church because that was your outlet. So everybody would go to church on base. And then you'd be able to sit around and write your family. I think it was after probably the 3rd week that we were able to start making phone calls.
Okay.
And you only got to make, they gave you each person 10 minutes in the phone booth. So if you had a 10-minute conversation with just your mom, after 10 minutes, somebody else went in. Right. So if you kept it very short, you could call everyone in your family.
Right.
My first phone call was home to my mom, and my stepdad answered the phone, and I bawled my eyes out. Oh. Please come get me. I don't want to be here anymore. Oh. And him and I used to butt heads a lot when I lived at home because we're very stubborn people. Yeah. So I took a lot for granted while I lived there, and after I went away, I'm like, oh my gosh, come get me. I don't want to be here anymore. And I held it out, and I did really well. Yeah. So I always called home every chance I got. I would call home constantly. Okay.
So then you had your kind of relaxed down day. What else did you get to do then?
You got
anything fun, or did you?
It was more or less you had to stay inside your barracks. Okay. Sometimes they would have movies, and the boys and girls would get together, and we would watch movies. They would, the RDCs would bring popcorn in once in a while for us. You would do your laundry and fold it. There was people on base that did laundry, and then we had to go get it and fold it and put it all back in our lockers.
Oh, okay.
Everything was labeled and whatnot, so we knew whose was whose.
Right.
There also was the commissary that we would be able to go over to. Actually, it was the NEX is what it was called at RTC. We went over there after the 3rd week, and you could get your supplies you needed. We were able to get, candy and hair gel and stuff to hold your hair back and stuff like that. But
did you have long hair then? Or was it
No, actually, before I left, 2 weeks before I left, I had long hair to the middle of my back.
Okay.
My mom took me to a hair place, and they put it in one ponytail, and they snipped it all off.
Woo.
Because I didn't want, when you go to boot camp, when you first get to boot camp, if you have long hair, even if you are, if you have hair extensions or weaves or anything, they put it together, and all they did was just cut it straight across. So it was very angled.
Right.
You would have some down here and some up
Right,
here,
right.
but it all had to be above the collar.
Right.
So I just took it upon myself to have it cut before, so that way I knew it was cut straight across.
Right, that it was cut.
And it was very rough for my mom when I cut it. Very rough.
Oh, that was just more reality.
It was hard for me because that was my hair. It was hard, but it grew back after a while, so it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So then from A school, what was your next step?
I reported to the USS Comstock LSD 45 in San Diego, California on January 3rd. I reported there. On January 9th, we left for our first 9-month deployment. Okay. So I was only there for 4 days, and then we left. It was very rough. It was very surreal for me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What does it feel like to know like you're going over?
I called my mom and said, "Mom, we're leaving for overseas." She said, and that was when they were first bombing the oil rigs over in Kuwait.
Okay.
And that was where we first went to. The Comstock carried Marines. It's an LSD, so it's an amphibious ship. Mm-hmm. So we carried about 900 Marines over to Kuwait and dropped them off about a mile and a half off the coast of Kuwait. And then we just went around circles. We stopped at a couple different ports. Mm-hmm. We stopped at, I want to say, Bahrain and Guam. And then you stopped at Hawaii on your way out. You always stop at Hawaii because you fill up with all of your food and everything. It was really tough for me because it was the first 9 months I was away. And when you're out to sea, the phones don't always work. The internet doesn't always work. So you can't send emails. And back then, email really wasn't that hot back in 2001, 2002. People weren't really into emailing as much anymore. So it was the phone. And you could never get a phone service out there, so it was really hard for my mom knowing that I was on deployment. She had no idea where I was at because she couldn't tell them anyways. Right, that's true. When we hit port, that was like the first thing that everybody did was run to a phone. They would just bolt to a phone to call their families. Yeah. It was cramped quarters with the Marines. And so
when were you there? 2000. When did you leave?
2001 is when I went to boot camp because I enlisted July 25th of 2001.
So 9/11.
I was.
Where were you? You were. Was that A school?
Yes.
Okay.
I was in A school, and all of the footage and everything, they actually had all of the footage. They had huge movie screens set up on the blacktops, and we were all out there watching all the footage from it, all the news coverages and everything.
What was that like being active duty and seeing that?
It was very rough. It was really hard for me. Because I'm like, I can't believe that people would do that. Like, I'm serving our country, and you have people over there that are dying now because of all these innocent people who did nothing wrong for this. And it was really rough for me. There was a lot of people who would sit next to me that they were just bawling their eyes out. Yeah. You couldn't help but cry over it because.
Did it make you more scared? Or did it kind of not set in that we're going to war? It made me
scared, but it made me more proud that I had enlisted in the military, that I was doing something to help out our country, whether I was there or overseas. I was still doing something for our country. So it made me a little bit more proud.
When you got on the boat in January, and you knew where you were going and knew what was going on, but it was so fresh, kind of what was the feelings like? What was the atmosphere like? What was it like for you?
Honestly, it was rough because I didn't know anyone. I knew absolutely no one at all. So it was very traumatic for me, I think. I don't believe I talked to a lot of people when I was on there. I just kind of went to work, did my job, and go back to my bed and went to sleep. I didn't really talk to anyone until I got used to the atmosphere and got used to what we were doing. I bonded with, when I worked in the kitchen, we had some Marines that worked in our kitchen that were also cooks for the Marines, and they cooked in our kitchen, and I bonded with a lot of those guys just because it was easier to talk to them because they hadn't been there. They were new too. I was new. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anyone, so it was easier to talk to them. But after a while, you kind of just bond with whoever you're working with because that's who you see 14 hours a day is the people you work with. Right. So you don't get a day off. You work 7 days a week. You don't get a day off.
So what was your daily routine then?
Muster, which is, I guess, attendance. You had to meet for attendance, but they called it muster. 5:45 in the morning, 05:45. So if you wanted to work out before that, you were getting up at about 4 o'clock to go work out.
They didn't have scheduled PT in the morning for you?
No, they didn't while you were on the shift. They didn't. Some departments did, but ours did not because we had to start cooking breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
So we had like a day shift and a night shift is what we had. I was always on the day one. So I would get up at probably about 4:30 in the morning, get ready. You'd have to muster in the kitchen at 05:45. They gave you the pass down on what was going on for the day, what had happened through the night. And then you start cooking in the kitchen at 0600. I believe breakfast was served, I want to say about 0630, 0645. And you served breakfast for all of these people. There was probably about 1,600 on the Comstock that we fed. And then...
What does Comstock stand for?
It's just, that's what the name of it was. It was the USS Comstock.
Oh, that's the name of it.
That's the name of the ship that I was on. And then the LSD is an amphibious ship, is what the LSD is for.
Okay.
And then while some of us are serving breakfast, you have other people in the kitchen who are starting to prepare lunch. And I'll tell you, the first time when we went on deployment, I had to do potatoes. So I cut them, seasoned them, had them on my sheet pans. They were ready to go. The ship turned. All my sheet pans went flying onto the floor, and I just stood there and was like, what do I do? And they all laughed at me because it's happened to everyone. You're supposed to they have silicone pads for underneath it that you're supposed to set them on top of.
So they let you learn.
No one told me.
They let you learn.
And I'm like, what do I do? And I'm starting to cry. I'm like, don't cry. Just clean up the mess and go cut more. And I'm like, okay.
Oh my God.
It was rough, but you caught on to it after a while. Same thing with the oven doors. If you don't watch the oven doors, they're going to swing back and hit you and you're going to burn your arm. Right. So it's just little things that you have to learn from it. And it's just funny because when I tell my sister who's in the Navy about it, she just laughs at me. She's like, well, I could have told you that. Well, it was my first deployment and I didn't know what to do. So,
right.
And it was nice because on my ship I was on, there was 2 people that were in the kitchen with me that were stationed with my sister on the USS Emery Land in Sicily. So they knew my sister. They went to boot camp with her.
That's cool.
So they knew her, so it kind of felt a little bit more homey because they knew my sister.
Right. You had that connection.
Well, they would tell me stories, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to hear these. But it was nice.
Oh.
But it was scary trying to find your way around the ship. That's for sure.
Yeah. So then, so you served breakfast and everything, and then what'd you do after that?
You do your lunch, and then then your night crew comes in at about they come in at 1600. No, I'm sorry, that's 1800 at 6 o'clock. They come in at night at 1800, and then they start doing, they call it mid-rats, and that would be for your people who work on the night crew. They call them mid-rats. So they made a meal for mid-rats at night at midnight. So they did that after dinner was served, and then they started prepping up lunch or breakfast for us, doing the egg mixture, doing pancake mixture if we needed to, cracking eggs, all that kind of stuff for us.
Right.
So it's
you would
that's your day.
Okay. And so after you're done working, you would just kind of go back to your bunk and
that, or I would go down to the gym and work out once in a while, or I would go back to my bunk and watch a DVD or listen to music or something. Because you had to provide yourself with all that stuff. We had TVs in our berthings if you wanted them. That's what they called your rooms. I guess you call them is berthings. Okay. We had TVs in there, but if you weren't the first one at the TV, you weren't watching what you wanted to watch, and half the time you couldn't get channels anyways.
Right.
So.
Right. And you were on that boat for how long?
I was on that ship until 2004.
Okay.
I was on there till mid-2004. I got pregnant with my daughter, and then I was on shore duty for 9 months.
Okay. All right.
So I was on 2 deployments on the USS Comstock, and then I got pregnant with my daughter, and then I went to shore duty. So I worked at the barracks on the base.
Okay.
I worked at the barracks there for people who were on shore duty. For the officers and stuff, they would check in. It was like a hotel for military,
right?
Pretty much, and I worked there.
So your first deployment. So you're on the ship. Tell me some things about did you ever witness battles? Did you witness? Tell me kind of what do you remember from? What are some of your memories?
I remember that you could go up to the 6th deck. You could look out. You could open the doors. And you could walk out there because that's where people did watches at. And you could literally see the flames from over on the offshore of Kuwait. We were probably about 3 miles out, and you could still see it. It was terrifying, terrifying. And when I stood watch outside, we had our guns. We were all dressed up in battle gear, and they always said, look out for the little boats who are the suicide boats that would run into you, and they didn't care. It was so terrifying if I was out there. What would happen if somebody ran? I would never see my mom again. So that's a lot of stuff that went through my mind. I tried to stay below deck because I guess I didn't want to see what was going on outside because it scared me enough as it was.
Yeah.
By reading articles when we could finally get on the internet, stuff that, my parents would say when I called them about stuff they'd seen on the news, it was terrifying. When we finally picked the Marines back up after about 7 months, we picked them back up, and it was the same group that we had dropped off. It was like a completely different, changed group of people. They were quiet because we actually lost 4 of those Marines that we had dropped off. They didn't come back. They were killed over there. And it was really hard for a lot of them. It was a completely different atmosphere. Even the Navy people, it was just quiet.
Yeah,
because
very somber.
It was. And when we hit Hawaii on our way back in, that was where everybody kind of released everything. Going out, drinking, calling your families. A lot of people's families showed up in Hawaii because they were allowed to. When you come back from deployment, you get to take leave. You get 1 week. Either you take the first or second leave period, and you get, I think it's 1 week to 2 weeks, and you can start your leave in Hawaii. So there was quite a bit of people's families who would show up in Hawaii.
Yeah.
They would hang out for a couple of days, and then they flew back to the States, and they would do their leave. It was really hard for me.
Yeah.
And then when I finally got back, it was so wonderful to see my parents when I went on leave. It was awesome. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to go back.
And that was after 9 months of being on the ship.
We were back for probably 4 months, and then we got deployed again for another 6 months. So I was only home for 4 months, and then I got deployed again for 6 months.
So while you were home, you still did your Monday through Friday work with the Navy?
When you're in port, when we came back after 9 months, I went on leave. So I went to see my family, and I came back, and then you're on a schedule. It was 3 days. It was 3 days on, 2 days off. So you would work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then have Thursday, Friday off, and then you work Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Okay.
So it was a 3 and 2 schedule. So you would still keep your same schedule. You still had to be there at the same time. You still had to do the same things. But when you're in port, you're doing less work because you're not preparing as many meals because they don't have to eat on the ship if they want to. At lunchtime, if you're working, you can leave and go get lunch and come back.
Right.
So it's like any other normal job. But quite a few people would just stay on the ship because it's right there.
Right.
And on our docks that we were in, it was probably like a mile walk to your vehicle. And then you had to get in your car, go around the base, go out of the gate. It was just a lot of hassle for us. So it was a lot less work. And it was a lot more, it was a better environment when we were in port. Just because everybody saw their family, they're right there.
What was your homecoming like after your first deployment? Was it parades and excitement and parties, or what was
every time you pull into port, you man the rails. So if it's during the summer months, you wear your dress whites. If it's during the winter fall, you wear your dress blues. So we man the rails in whatever season.
Is that what that picture is?
Yeah, that's what the
picture
picture is.
let me show it since you're talking about it. You said man the rails, right?
Yep.
And this was the ship you were on?
No, that was the second one.
Okay.
But that's exactly what it would look like if you man the rails on the Comstock. You just find a spot outside of the ship on any of the decks, and you stand at parade rest, and you just stand there. And most of the time you stand at parade rest for probably 45 minutes to an hour. It could be longer. So it was very rough.
Right.
But it was worth it because when you pulled in, everybody would always fight for the side of the dock that you could see everybody.
Yeah.
Because everybody would have their signs and everything. And I remember my mom being there. It was the most...
Could you see her from...
You couldn't really see her because they were like little ants. You're like, let me put on my binoculars, where are you at?
Right.
But once you pulled in there and everything was hooked up and you were good, then people start yelling and you start picking out where your family is. And I could see her. It was the most amazing feeling in my entire life to see my mom.
Yeah.
The most amazing feeling. Like, I made it home, I'm good, I'm here.
Right.
But then when we got the call that we had to go again, it was like, seriously, you're just getting used to being home in your routine, and then you have to go again. And I lived on the ship.
Oh, you did?
So, I lived on the ship. I wasn't married. I didn't live in an apartment. I didn't live in the barracks. I lived on the ship.
Oh, okay.
All the time. And let me tell you, if you have a lot of clothes,
not the place.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
How big was your room?
The barracks is probably, I'd say maybe 3 times the size as like your regular bedroom would be. Just a regular size room, like 3 times size.
Right.
And you have one locker that is, if you had a bottom, they're stacked 3.
Right.
Is what they are. So the bottom one and the middle one, they're called bunks. They lifted up, the mattress lifted up, and there was a bunch of space in here where you could put stuff.
Oh,
if you were on the top bunk, you didn't have that. You had 2 lockers, and those lockers were probably, I'd say probably about this tall to about that wide.
And that's all the space.
That's all you had. So you had to bribe friends. So if you had friends that lived off the ship, most people tried to keep their stuff over there, or they would just go and stay at their houses. They would go and stake out there.
Okay.
So I stayed on the ship. I saved money. I saved more money that way by staying
Yeah,
on the ship.
yeah,
So,
I can imagine.
cost of living in San Diego is not cheap.
I can
It's
imagine.
expensive.
Did you have any family there? And no family?
I
there?
had absolutely no family in San Diego.
Okay.
And honestly, when I graduated A school, they give you your wish list on where you want to go, your top 3 places. Mine were all overseas. I had no kids, no family, no boyfriend, nothing, no attachments. So I wanted to go experience overseas. I wanted to go to Japan and Australia and Guam. I got stationed in California.
Yeah.
I was like, you could have stationed me in Virginia where my sister was at, but so we were both on opposite sides of the states.
Okay. So during your 4 months in between your deployments, how often did you get to spend time with your family then?
I went home for leave that one time, and that was about it.
That was it?
Yeah, because it's getting leave is very difficult to get leave.
Okay.
Because they don't just hand it out to whoever free willy-nilly. You have to, you earn it just like you do any other job.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just take it and go. So I wanted to save mine up for Christmas and stuff. I wanted to make sure that I could go home for Christmas, because at Christmas time they do 2 weeks. You either get the first 2 weeks or the second 2 weeks. You either get Christmas at home or you get New Year's at home.
Oh,
so it was one of those things.
Right.
But like my sister's in the Navy now, she can take leave, quite frequently. She takes days here and days there. But it comes with how long you've been in.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't in for very long, so I didn't have.
You didn't hold the rank of being able to kind of come and go.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not being a seaman recruit. No way. No.
So you're in San Diego and you find out you're being deployed again. Tell me kind of, what was the feeling about that? What was were you like, been there, done that?
I was like, seriously again? Like, we have to go again.
And was it another 9 months?
It was only 6 months this time.
Okay.
It was only 6 months. I was like, really again? But it wasn't as stressful as it was last time.
Okay.
Because I knew the ropes. I knew what to do. I had a routine. I knew my job. I had already been there for, almost a year.
Right.
So it wasn't new to me anymore. But then when you'd see the new people come on, like, I would just want to be like, do you want me to help you? I know how you is, but
make sure you use the non-slip pad under the potatoes.
don't put anything on the counters that you don't want to slide off. It'll slide off. But it was better, a lot better.
Yeah.
It got a lot better.
Okay.
So.
And you're very close to your mom, obviously. Yeah. So what was how did she feel when you had to make that call and say,
she was like, again? Really? It was rough because I missed my baby sister's graduation from school. While I was on deployment, my brother had enlisted in the Army, so he went to boot camp in Texas. So he was gone. My little sister was graduating from high school, and I missed that. And she had decided, her and her boyfriend at the time had decided to enlist in the Air Force together on the buddy program.
Right.
So they enlisted. I missed that. They went to boot camp and they came home and they got married. I wasn't able to go to that because I was on deployments every time that they got married. Right. My older sister with her ex-husband, they got married when I was on deployment, so I was not there either.
So did you have, like, you missed so many big things. Did you have regret? Like, how did you weigh that as far as, is it worth it? Is it not?
I thought about that, but seeing the look on my mom's face when she told people that I was serving the country, seeing the look on my real dad's face and even on my stepdad's face, it brought joy to me knowing that my parents were so proud of me that I wasn't just going to school and I wasn't just going to stay in the same town, marry somebody who I went to school with, and have a job and start having kids. I was actually doing something for our country. Whether it was just because I was cooking doesn't mean I wasn't doing anything for our country. Right. I was helping out for the cause. Right. So for me, it was so humbling for me, and the response you get from people when you go back home and they're like, "Thank you for your service." It just, even now when people say that to me, I'm like, it brings joy to my heart. And even listening to the Star Spangled Banner or the songs that like Toby Keith sings about America, it brings so much joy to me. Yeah. And when I see people, even at like the demolition derbies, people sit down during the national anthem, I'm like, you need to get up. Yeah. This is so disrespectful.
It's the pride.
It is, and I have so much of it. When they say, can all military stand up, I like jump up instantly. Yeah. It's I don't regret any of it. I wish I could have been a part of it. But, I mean.
You were a part of it.
It's, things happen. It comes and goes. There's nothing you can do about it. It's life. Right. There'll be other experiences when they have their children, or if they get married again, if something happens, I'll be there for those. Right. So I think of it like that.
Right. Okay. So you were on the ship for your first deployment of
Mhm.
9 months. Then you docked in San Diego
Mhm. For 4 months.
for 4 months, and then you lived on the boat, and
Mhm.
then you're getting deployed again.
Mhm.
So this, essentially, you were on this ship that
Mhm.
whole time. That was your life.
Mhm.
And then, okay, so tell me about the second deployment. How was it different? How was it the same?
It really wasn't any differently. It really
Okay.
wasn't. It was the same routine day.
Okay.
It was like a Groundhog's Day all over again.
All over again.
It was the same thing every day, just a different day.
Yeah.
And I honestly, you lose track of the days because it's just repetitive. And it's funny when you pull back in, or if your family sends you care packages. That was like the best thing in the world.
I was going to ask you about that too.
Oh my gosh, that was the best thing in the world, was getting care packages.
What kind of things did you get?
And when the
care
Girl
packages?
Scouts sent all their Girl Scout cookies for us.
Oh.
It was like love at first sight.
Right.
And stuff. My mom would send me books, beef jerky, candy, cards from my grandma, cards from her.
Right.
Little knick-knack things if I wanted, if I needed, t-shirts or underwear or
Right.
body wash or
Right.
anything, my mom would always send it to me. My sister from Virginia, she would send stuff to me from over there when she was staying over there. It just, we had a store on the ship that supplied things, but it wasn't an overabundance of things.
Right.
So it was slim pickings when you got down there.
Right.
So my mom would send me, and when when it was mail day, everybody knew it was mail day. Everybody did.
Right.
And
How often did you have mail day?
Well, you get mail every day.
Okay.
The packages only come in when we have like a supply come into us.
Okay.
That's the only time that we have like packages get dropped off to us, and because they're shipping overseas, sometimes it could take up to a month or two before they could even get to you.
Right.
And around Christmas time, people would send cookies and fudge and Christmas presents. It was good having those care
So you were on the
packages.
boat during Christmas?
No, we were home before Christmas.
Okay.
But even while you're in there, though, they would still send, when you're in port, people still send care packages to you. No, on Christmas, I was standing watching the rain.
Oh.
That's how I remember that, because I didn't get to go home for Christmas. I was home for New Year's.
Oh, okay.
So I was standing watching the rain, and it was awful.
Okay.
I'm like, it was my first Christmas away from home, so it was awful.
Right.
It was awful.
So did you take any of the newbies under your wing and help them out, or did you kind of let them learn the same way?
If they were in the kitchen with me, all of us would kind of chip in and do it. But if they did a mistake, we were just kind of like just standing there, like, okay, we're gonna let them do it, and they're gonna have to learn on their own.
Right.
But in the barracks, you kind of have to be careful who you buddy up with. It's just you kind of have to be careful because you don't want to be taken advantage of because you're in such close quarters. So people will become your best friend. So then, if they see that you're getting a lot of care packages and a lot of stuff, they're going to want to be your best friend.
Okay.
So one of these new people, some of the people would take advantage of them because they're new. And it wasn't really, I was not naive when I first got there because my sister had given me a warning list of what to look for.
Right.
So I was careful with mine.
Right.
But I became friends with them, but it's, they're co-workers. I didn't, hang out with anyone outside the ship. I just kind of kept to myself.
Right.
So
you talked a little bit about being on watch,
Mhm.
having to go on up top and be on
Mhm.
watch. Do you have any memories of, did you ever see anything? Did you ever, tell me about
Yes.
your, okay.
We were standing watch in the aft of the ship, which is the back end of it, and we were there was myself and there was another girl. We're standing up there, and all of a sudden we looked down. She's like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, is that a body?" It was this huge thing floating. So we had to radio down, and they called man overboard drill. They thought somebody had fallen in. It was later reported that it was a bag of trash.
Oh.
Somebody threw a bag of trash in the water. We thought it was a body floating. So they called man overboard. Everybody had to get out of their racks,
Right.
go to their man overboard stations. They had to do muster. They had to do counts, make sure everybody was where they were supposed
All
to be.
for a bag of trash.
Everybody was accounted for. So they dropped one of our boats, and the bosun mates and some of the officers and chiefs got on there, and they went to look. It was later discovered it was a bag of trash. However, we were blamed from a lot of people about it because they were really mad because they had to get up at
That's why I was
2,
going to ask
3,
what
4
was
o'clock
the,
in the morning
what was
about
the
it.
backlash on that. Yeah.
But the people, the officers and chief stuff who found out, they commended us for doing a good job for having our eyes on, because you never know.
Right.
It could have been a body. It could have been a body with trash on top of it. You never know.
Right.
So they commended us for it, but again, they were like, "Don't wake us up this early in the morning ever again." So it was kind of a catch-22 on that one.
Right.
But I was okay with it. I'm like, I have the gun. I don't care.
Right.
But it
Right.
was, standing watches weren't very easy, because especially if you did it and it was freezing out and you're outside, you'd have to bundle up and everything. You had this gun, you had your mask on, you had a
Right.
walkie, and every 15 minutes you had to check in with the officers. You had to check in with them. Everything's clear. You always had to check in. So it was
how
really
long
difficult.
were those?
4-hour watches.
4 hours.
And they split it. Everybody took a shift. It wasn't just myself. Everybody took a shift, different times. So the kitchen took, I think it was like a couple weeks that the kitchen did it, and then we switched out with someone else.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah,
How
it was
often
all different areas did it, but the bosun mates, which is up on the boat deck, they did a lot of it because that's what their jobs were.
Right.
So
okay.
it was nothing new. Everybody had a watch of some sort. The gunners' mates were down in the armory, so they were on watches checking out guns and checking in guns.
Right.
So
okay.
everybody was always doing something.
Yeah. Sounds like you gotta keep the shit moving. Keep it moving.
So
tell me about your stops that you made along the way. I know you mentioned a couple different.
I have between both of my ships. I have been to Hawaii probably 6 times between in and out of ports. I've been to Bahrain, Guam.
Did you actually get off the ship in all those places?
Each port you had a different amount of time. So one port you would pull in and there'd maybe be 3 or 4 days at that one.
Okay.
There'd be another one where there was only 2 days. There'd be another one where it was like 4 or 5 days. And they would do a schedule for like the kitchen, so everybody would get the same amount of time.
Okay.
They would work your schedule so everybody would be able to have the same amount of time off. So if you had 3 days in port, this group would be off 1 day, this group would be off 1 day, and then the first day everybody would be working, and then you guys would get off work at 6 or 7, and you guys could go do whatever you want to do.
Okay.
So they rotate us so we could all get time in the port.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. Bahrain, Guam, Australia. I've been to Australia.
Okay.
I've been to Japan. I've been to Thailand. Okay, yeah, Thailand, Hong Kong.
Wow.
Dubai. I've been to Dubai 3 times, and that Dubai is amazing. I went skiing in their indoor skiing resort.
Did you really?
At their mall, they had an indoor skiing resort. It was awesome. I called my mom and said, "Mom, I'm skiing in Dubai." She's like, "There's no snow there." There is where I'm at. It was an indoor. It was inside of the mall, and it was indoor, and it was awesome.
That's
awesome.
Cool.
I think that's pretty much it. Every place I went to, I bought shot glasses. Every place I went to, and I always bought souvenirs for my family.
I was gonna ask if you would send care packages back.
Whether it be a keychain or a magnet or postcards. I bought my grandma a pair of slippers that were made from kangaroo slippers, and she still has them to this day.
Aww.
They're hanging up on her mirror in her bedroom. And I waited until I got home, and then I gave a lot of the stuff to them. But I always bought T-shirts. Shot glasses was the big thing I bought.
Yeah.
That was the really big thing. And it was funny because I was on the West Coast and my sister was on the East Coast. So she would see all of those countries over there, and I saw all of these countries over here.
Right.
So she would buy me shot glasses from over there, so that way I had them from all the different countries. That's cool. It was awesome. I loved traveling. I loved it so much.
So what other cool places did you stop at that you like? Okay, so you got to ski in Dubai. What else?
I gambled. I played the casinos in Australia.
Did you?
Yeah, and
Did you win?
I think I maxed out my account because I wasn't sure on the whole money thing.
Oh.
So I'm not really sure how that went, and I ended up with like, wait a minute, how do I do this? And they're like, you pulled out way too much. You don't need. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, oh no, how do I do this? Because I wasn't sure on the different dollar things.
Right,
I wasn't sure how to do
right.
it. So it was different. It was different learning it.
Right.
When we went to Bahrain, we weren't allowed to leave the base because that was when everything was going on in Kuwait. And that's when the wars all first broke out in Afghanistan and everything, so we weren't allowed to leave the base in Bahrain.
Was that scary, knowing that like you're confined because of war going on?
I was fine because I knew there was people over there that were fighting for us, and I knew we were going to be okay.
Right.
My hesitation was going to Dubai. That was my biggest hesitation because just the Islam and everything, I was petrified of it. Petrified. Right. But when you went off base, everything was fine. It was fine. They greeted you like, you know,
really?
They were fine with you. The only thing is they gave us a bunch of rules before you went out. You know, don't do PDA, you know, where you're holding hands, don't make out in public, you know, don't show a lot of skin because women don't do that. You know, don't talk inappropriately because you'll get kicked out of places. So they just gave us a whole list, and usually that happened at every port.
Okay.
They would give you a list of do's and don'ts for the ports if there was certain things to do. Bahrain was one of them. We weren't allowed to leave the base at all, but on that base, they had a club on the base. So you can imagine when you have a ship pull in and there's already people stationed there, it it was packed.
Oh, I'm
So
sure.
you would see people sitting out.
The locals probably were like, oh, here we go.
It pretty much was, because there was tons of people that were stationed there.
Right.
But you would see a lot of people sitting out on the front lawns,
Right.
drinking beer out there. Because overseas, 18 is the age. So everybody was drinking overseas.
Right.
Everybody did.
Right.
It was awesome. It really was.
Yeah.
It really was. And skiing in Dubai was probably the best thing I've
I
ever
was just
done.
going to ask you, what was your favorite stop?
Skiing, of course,
Yeah.
was awesome. But Australia was amazing too. I stayed in a hotel in Australia that overlooked the entire city. A couple of my friends went in on it, and we got a hotel room in it. It was gorgeous.
That's amazing.
Gorgeous. And our not activity. I guess it would be like your activity people in like civilian world, but they were on your ship. They would be communicating with people, a group of people on each port when we went there, and they would be setting up different tours and stuff.
That's good.
In Australia, they went ziplining, and you can sign up for these things before we docked.
Yeah.
And then we paid for it because we had little credit cards with ATM machines there that we could pull money out of our account. Actually, what it was the little ATM cards were hooked up to your actual physical account, so you could transfer money from your actual account to these little credit cards. Okay. So then you would pay with that stuff on the ship for these different tours.
Yeah.
So like when we went to Sasebo, we went to a sake factory, and you toured how to make sake. And then they had a table set up with all the different kinds of sake, and it was awesome.
I'm sure it was. That's like genuine, authentic.
It is, and if you have never had it before, I would suggest drinking every single one on the table, because you're not going to be able to go very far. But it was amazing to do these tours, and it didn't cost very much. Right. Zip lining in Australia, I didn't do that because I wanted to go and walk the city and go shopping. I bought my first pair of pants overseas. They were Lucky jeans, and I bought them from the Lucky store in Australia, and I still have them to this day.
Really?
They do not fit me. They're about this small. I refuse to get rid of them because they were my very first pair of jeans I ever bought.
It's part of your history.
Well, once in a while I try and put them on, and it doesn't work very well.
Like, go put those back in the...
But that was my very first thing that I went shopping for, and I bought them, and I have never gotten rid of them ever since. So I have a couple things like that. A lot of stuff I've either misplaced or lost it throughout moving to different ports and stuff, but some of the stuff I've kept very close.
That's cool.
Yeah. But
it sounds like you got to, you wanted to see the world. And
and I saw it too, and I didn't have to pay for any of it. All I had to do was pay for the activities.
Right.
And if you were cheap and didn't want to eat out in the city, you come back, eat your meals on the ship, and then go right back out to yeah. It was awesome.
Now, did you ever get in trouble?
Honest to God, no.
No? Okay.
No, because I was too afraid to get in trouble, because they would always warn us about drinking, and if you get in trouble, your liberty will be revoked for the whole entire time. Oh. So they'll revoke. There was a couple people who had liberty that was revoked for the whole deployment. So every time we pulled into a port, they were just watching you from the quarterdeck, waving at you, because they couldn't come off the ship.
So they threatened you enough to make you not want to
never
get in trouble.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I had heard stories with my sister on, you need to be respectful, you need to be polite, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, and all that, and I followed it because I didn't want to get in any kind of trouble. I didn't want it to jeopardize my career.
Right.
So.
Okay. So you were on that, you said 6 months was that deployment? Mm-hmm. Okay. So then tell me about when that deployment was over and you found out it's time to go home.
I got home. We got back. My mom, I don't believe, was there on that one. We got home. We were in port for a couple months, and I found out I was pregnant. I went down to New Mexico with some friends and got a little on liberty, and it was fun and whatnot. And then a couple weeks later, I found out I was pregnant, which was fine. So that was very heartbreaking for me because they were getting ready to go on another deployment. I found out I was pregnant on my 21st birthday. It was actually, it was a couple days after. It was heartbreaking because I wasn't married and my family was so far away, so I didn't have anyone.
Right.
My daughter's biological father was getting ready to leave for deployment again. He was on the Comstock, and it was hard for me. It was very hard.
Yeah.
That's when I went to shore duty and worked at the barracks, the hotel thing there.
Right.
It was rough seeing all of my friends leave for deployment, getting emails that we're stopping in Hawaii or we're stopping in Australia. Hey, we're stopping in Guam. I don't care anymore.
Right. And where were you? San Diego?
I was still in the whole time, all 7 years. I was in San Diego the entire time. I never was stationed anywhere else. It was always San Diego.
Okay.
So I was at the barracks for, I want to say probably about a good year, because 9 months, and then they give you about 12 weeks afterwards. So I was there for about a good year.
Okay.
And then I got stationed on the USS Ronald Reagan CVN 76.
Okay.
And that was my
So
last
when
stop.
you went, you had your daughter then?
Mm-hmm. I had my daughter in the Naval Hospital in San Diego.
Was anybody with you?
No.
No.
No. No.
Oh.
My sister, my parents, I can't remember why they couldn't come out there. There was some reason why they couldn't come out there.
Okay.
My older sister, came out 2 weeks after I had my daughter. I had a best friend who ended up moving in with me, and I met her at the barracks.
Okay.
She was there for me. She was there when I had my daughter.
Oh,
That was my daughter.
good.
That's my daughter's godmother.
Okay.
And I still talk to her to this day.
Okay.
And she was there for me.
And the
She
father
was my
wasn't able to come back for no.
Yeah, no.
Oh.
No. So it was rough, but after I saw my daughter, it was like, okay, this is good. So I got a couple months to spend with her, and then after a year, I got my orders to go to report to the Ronald Reagan, which was stationed at Point Loma, which is still in San Diego.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Which is San Diego.
So
I'm sorry, it's Coronado. Coronado. You have to
Okay.
go over a huge bridge in San Diego, and I went to Coronado. There's two parts of it. Coronado, where all the carriers are at, is over here, and then
Right.
you go down a little bit further, and that's where the Navy SEALs are stationed.
Oh,
at.
cool.
That's where they do all their training and everything.
Okay.
At. So there was two parts of it, and they were at Point Loma.
Okay.
So I was at Coronado Island, is what it's called.
And how long were you there then?
2 years.
Okay.
I was stationed on Ronald Reagan for 2 years.
So did you end up deploying again?
I deployed 3 times on the Ronald Reagan. 3 times on the Reagan. My first deployment was when my daughter was 6 weeks old.
Oh.
It was the toughest thing I ever had to do in
How
my
long
entire
were you
life.
gone?
6 months, 7 months. And it was the toughest thing. My mom and my stepdad sent me tons of pictures. My daughter actually stayed with my mom. She didn't have custody of her, but they call it care custody in the military, dependent custody. She had, my mom and my stepdad had her. They kept her for me. Even with my mom working, they found a babysitter for her. They took care of her. When we pulled back into port, my daughter and my mom were waiting for me on the dock. It was the most.
Oh.
It was like giving birth all over again to her. My
Right.
facial, but she wanted nothing to do with me. She did not know who I was. She had no idea. And we were home for probably 3 months, and then we had to turn around and leave again. So she was just getting used to me. We had to leave again. So my mom flew back out and picked her up again and took her back home with her.
Yeah.
So the whole time I was in the Navy with my daughter, my mom and my stepdad took her.
Right.
And they raised her.
Right.
It was so hard.
Yeah.
So hard leaving
So
her.
you deployed on the Reagan
Mhm.
for 6 months,
Mhm.
came back home, and then left again?
Yeah, we left for another 6 months. And then came back and we were at port for a couple months. And then we left for just a 4-month deployment.
Okay.
And then we came home, and then that's when my time was up, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't enlist anymore. I can't do this. I gotta be home. Sometimes I regret that decision by getting out, because sometimes I regret it. Like, I wish I would have stayed in and did, my full 20 years or something. But then I look at all the things that I have now that led me to where I'm at, and I'm grateful for what I have for it.
Yeah.
So it was tough, making the decision of getting out.
How old was your daughter when you got out then?
3,
3.
2.5, 3 years old. She was just she was still little.
Still little enough to not remember that.
It was, but we show her pictures. My mom has a couple pictures of her when she was so tiny, and it's like I missed out on so much stuff. But my parents sent me tons and tons of pictures of her.
Yeah, that's good.
But it was that way with my sister Mariah that's in the Navy. My parents raised her oldest son, Zach, too. They had Zach quite a bit, too, when she was in and out to sea, because Zach's father was also an active military.
Okay.
So they both were on deployment. So when they left, he would go home. And there was that one time where both my daughter and my nephew were both together with my parents.
Oh.
So it was nice seeing
what
pictures and
amazing
stuff.
parents. To
My
be able to
parents
take
are
those-
my parents are very strong. They're very strong.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So then you got out.
Mm-hmm.
So where'd you go from there?
I discharged out, and I was married at the time. My husband and I, it was just a courthouse marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a spur thing, but it was worth it. But him
Are
and
you
I
still married?
Not to him.
Okay.
Not to him. He moved back to Mississippi, and I went about and came home. But I discharged out. We moved to St. Louis because that's where my older sister was living at.
Oh, okay.
So I moved down there and stayed with her for a while until we, got our feet wet. I enrolled in college down there. I was doing really
culinary.
No, I went to massage therapy school.
Well, there you go.
Which is completely different, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I ended up leaving college down there and leaving St. Louis and coming back home to Illinois.
Okay.
I couldn't do it down there. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I wanted my daughter to come back to school here. She's getting older where she was going to start school soon. I wanted her to come home and go to the same school district I did.
Yeah.
So my mom and my stepdad opened their home to us, and we lived there for quite a while until I met my husband now.
Okay.
And then him and I moved in together, and we still live in the area.
Okay.
We haven't moved out. But
right.
all these stories, he hears them all the time because he
Yeah.
always asks me questions about stuff in the military.
Right. Was it hard for you to adjust back to civilian
Yes.
life?
It was very difficult for me because I always look at it that when you're in the military, all of your bills come out automatically. Everything comes out. You can set up your car payment, your insurance, your cell phone, everything comes out automatically. So what you get is what you get.
Right.
I had a car that I couldn't remember, that I forgot I had to pay the car note on because it's just little things like that you forget. It was hard adjusting to civilian life. I would still call people, yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, because it was so difficult to adjust. I would eat really quick because I was so used to doing that. So it was a hard adjustment for me, but I made it work.
Yeah.
I made it work.
Right.
But it was surreal. I'm like, am I really out? Like, I don't have to get up in the morning? And I still am an early riser. Just from getting up early in the morning.
Because your body's so trained for
it
that.
Is. It
so
is.
Trained.
It is. It absolutely is.
And you said you keep in touch with some of the people still from,
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I have one that lives in Michigan, and she just recently got married and had a baby. And the other one still lives she lives in Florida, but she goes to San Diego a lot. And then there's a couple other ones that I don't, I'm not best friends with, but we just chat once in a while on where they're at and whatnot. But the two girls, I talk to them quite frequently.
Good.
Quite frequently.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what about any veteran organizations? Did you join VFW or Legion, or is there any organizations you're a member of?
My husband, I'm on the fence about doing the VFW and the Legion. I've wanted to for so long. I guess I see our Legion and our VFW, all the old school military members, and I'm like, where are all the new ones? There's a lot of vets that live around here, but the young ones don't ever want to get involved in anything. And my husband wants me to so badly, and I'm just on the fence about it if I have time to be able to give them everything that I can give them.
And that's the problem with VFWs all over, is that they're trying to get the younger generation.
And they've contacted me several times. Yeah. I would love to. It's just with my daughter's school schedule and my work schedule and my husband's, and I don't want to put too much on my plate and commit to them and then say, I can't come and do this.
Yeah, sure.
But I know I'll eventually do it because Labor Day and Veterans Day and stuff, my heart is so full by watching all them, and I'm like, why can't I do that? My husband's like, you have to fill out the paperwork, just go.
Right.
But I need to, there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of young vets that don't want anything to do with that. They get out and then they're done with the military.
Yes.
Well, I like to keep it alive, and I keep inching to my daughter, you need to go to the military.
Yeah.
Go to the military. They give you scholars, money for school, you get to see the world, so it's...
How old is she now?
She's 12.
Okay.
She's
so
12.
You're ingraining it in early.
I'm trying to. I promote her all the time from her
Yeah.
because she knows how proud I am when I talk about my stuff.
Right.
And she's so proud when she talks about her mom in the Navy.
Right. So how do you think overall being part of the military, actually seeing war, how has that affected your life as a person, as compared to when you were young before you went into now?
I understand more things. I understand why people go over there and why they do what they have to do. Mm-hmm. When I was little, I never understood why people are dying for stuff like that. Why would you want to enlist if you're just going to die anyways? Why would you want to do it? I understand the severity of it and how they need people on the front lines to defend everything. Mm-hmm. And I understand how it all works and how it all plays out. I just have more knowledge than what I did back then. I have a lot more knowledge of the different roles that the different branches play, and the different roles that your pilots play, and the different roles that, when my sister said she was going to be a cook, I'm like, why would you go in the Navy to be a cook? I understand that just because you're a cook, you still have a big part of the Navy. You have to feed the sailors in order to keep them going, keep them running the ship. You have to feed the Marines in order to keep them running and keep them energized. So I understand the roles of all the different parts that are played in the military now.
Right.
So I'm a little bit more schooled on it, I guess.
And what's your feelings about today? What is your feelings about Iraq, Afghanistan, Russia, politics? What's
Can
your
I be blunt about it?
Absolutely. That's what. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it freaking sucks.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think they should have pulled the military people out when they could after we lost a whole bunch of people. I think they should have pulled them all. Obama and them, they should have pulled everybody that they could have then. They should have pulled them all back and regrouped, re-strategized, and then went from there. I don't think sending more of our troops over there was going to help the cause. All you did was kill more people and kill more family members, and it hurt more of our Americans that way. You hurt more people than what you did help. Mm-hmm. I understand that they were from what happened with 9/11 and bombing the Pentagon, all that stuff. I understand that. But after that happened, there were so many different threats and so many different situations that we had been in. They should have pulled our people and regrouped at that time and re-strategized with everybody. I have to turn the news off now because I can't stand to watch it anymore because it's always about something going on over there.
Yeah.
Pull everyone out, regroup, re-strategize, and let's figure out a plan instead of keep killing our Americans. And all that is doing is making more harm for us as Americans to do stuff. They talk about all these immigrants from different countries and whatnot. I'm not opposed to that, but at the same time, you have to be careful who you allow into our country because they're just going to affect us even more.
Right. So
I think it sucks. I think it sucked back then. I think it sucks now, and I think it's going to suck in the future. I think you need to have somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. In my opinion, I think if you're a president, I think you should have served in one of the branches of the military because then you know exactly how the military works and how you need to strategize and regroup to have everyone come together and make it better. No one has a clue. How does Trump know what he's doing? He runs companies. How does he know how military affects anything? Obama was not military. He didn't know anything about it, and it just sucks for the people.
You should run for president someday.
Well, I am. This is one of my biggest reasons why I'm afraid to let my daughter go in because I don't want her to get a big head and think I can fight for our country. I'm gonna go over there, and then they send these people over there, and my daughter doesn't come back. Yeah. That's what scares me the most. My brother did 3 tours to Afghanistan, and it sucked. Yeah. My stepdad wrote letters to the Congress about it because he was the only blood son that he had. Right. And it sucked. They need to get their heads out of their asses, honestly. Yeah. About it.
So then what advice, what thoughts do you have for future generations? Let's say I explained to you that your great-great-great-great-granddaughter, grandson someday could be watching this. Maybe they're thinking about military. Maybe what advice do you have for them about military, about life in general?
If you have no connections, such as children or husband or even a boy, even if you have a boyfriend or whatever, don't be afraid to join the military. It is for the better cause. You hear all these things about war, but it's not necessarily going to just affect you. For me, it's free schooling. They give you a GI Bill. You can go to school for free. If you're in Illinois and you list in Illinois, you discharge in Illinois, you get to go to any Illinois school for free. They pay for it. Plus, you get to use your GI Bill. They pay for your housing if you're married or have children while you're in. It's a free vacation. You see all these countries. Granted, you're out to sea a lot. You don't get to see your family. You don't get to talk to them. But you're doing things that are important. You're working. You're learning different skills while you're there. Hell, I did damage control while I was a cook. I went around to different spaces and cleaned things. It's maintenance. You learn it while you're there. You learn different areas of the military. They pay for everything for you. It is an amazing opportunity to go. If you're scared to go, then enlist for the first 2 or 3 years and then get out after that. Mm-hmm. But I believe everybody should have some part of the military at some point. Whether you're married to one, your kid is one, your grandpa was one, you're one, everybody should be a part of it somehow because it's an amazing opportunity. Amazing opportunity.
I agree.
Amazing.
So, Lucy, what are you doing now? Tell me about your life now.
Oh.
Where you work, your husband, your kids.
I work in Lena at the nursing home as the dietary director. I've been here a little over a year, and I love it. My daughter is 12. She's in 7th grade. I have a stepson who's 7, and he lives in Freeport with his mom, and he was the Empire. And my husband, we've been married, October will be 5 years, been together for 8. He is a correctional officer for Carroll County, and he's also a volunteer firefighter for Shannon, Illinois. Nice. So, and I live in the same town that I grew up in and graduated in. I came back to it because it's a nice small community, and my daughter's going to the exact same school that my husband and I graduated
That's
from.
kind of cool. You started here and you went and saw the world and did your
And
thing,
I promised I was
back.
never going to come back because it was such a small town, but it brought me back because it's home. That's my home. My parents live 7 miles from me, and my dad lives 10 miles from me. My little sister's 3 blocks over. My older sister is still in Virginia, but that's okay. And then my other sister is in Madison, so we're right there.
Yeah.
So life has been good to me so far.
Good. That's good.
So far.
Is there anything else that we haven't talked about? Is there any other stories, any other thoughts, anything else? We're gonna go through some of this too, show some of your stuff.
The other one, top one.
This one?
Yep. When we were, it's the bottom story.
Okay.
When we first enlisted in, after a year or two of being in, they sent 4 of us were on deployment at the exact same time.
Okay.
Mariah, my second oldest sister, she was on the USS Harry Truman out of Virginia. She was deployed. I went on deployment on the Comstock. My brother was deployed with the Army, and my little sister had just gotten to Anchorage, Alaska.
I can't imagine being your mother.
It was very stressful for my mom.
Yeah.
It was actually around the time, I believe it was around Christmas holidays.
Right.
They did a story on her because she had 4 out of 5 kids that were military. And it was funny because it wasn't funny, but it's funny to me now that she said every time the phone rang, her heart would sink. Yeah. Because she said, is it one of my children calling? Or is it somebody calling saying that something happened with my kids? Right. It was really weird. And then we were all home at one time. There was all 5 of us, we were all home at the same time. So that's when they continued the story, was when we were all 5 home at the same time.
That's neat.
Yeah.
That's neat.
So, and that's another story that they did for me being on the USS Ronald Reagan. Okay. It was a brand new carrier that had made its maiden voyage from Virginia to San Diego. I had just gotten there about 2 months after they came back from San Diego. Okay. Or from Virginia. And they did a story on me because I was on the Reagan, and little town, proud of everything. So they did a story on me. So it was wonderful to read that they did stories on me about that. So, and then that is my boot camp yearbook, which I didn't remember I had, but thankfully my husband found it for me. And what it has in it is it has pictures of the graduating classes that were in that time frame, and then it has different pictures in it from the old school Navy to the new school Navy, and then it has pictures in there of what you did when they came through and did inspections, how your bed needed to be made. What is this? That's actually RTC. That's the boot camp. That's actually what boot camp looks like. I'm sure they've done upgrades now to it, but that's what it looked like back then.
And then
oh my gosh. So young looking.
And this was your boot camp graduation picture?
Yes. About 3 weeks into boot camp, you take an actual picture, and you can order pictures. My mom ordered this huge 11 by 14 of me. And everybody that has our pictures, my mom had them up just until recently when she redid her living room. She had them all up on the wall. I said, Mom, that was like 15 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm like, why is it up? I'm just so proud of my kids when people come in. And she used to do it when people would come into the house. She'd say, come look at my kids. This is my girl, pride. And I'm like, but you're missing the oldest one. So we would always make fun of you only have 4 kids, but then here's the extra. Right. But it was a wonderful time. It really was. And when I got home with my family and my brothers and sisters home, it was amazing just to be home. And we would share stories of different things. Yeah. So it was.
You guys kind of had that bond of all being military, all being.
It wasn't that my stepdad would chime in with his stories from way back then. Yeah. And I'm like, it's not the same anymore.
Right, right. And now is not the same from when you were in either.
No,
it changes.
And what's really funny is Veterans Day, they do Veterans Day programs at my daughter's school every year, and I always plan to be off on Veterans Day. I don't feel I should have to work on Veterans Day. I don't. Absolutely do not. I don't think any veteran should work on Veterans Day. Absolutely not. So I go to the Veterans Day programs, and I want to say 3 years ago, they had an old school military person stand up and a new school one. So I was with a Navy lady that had graduated. She was a nurse in the Navy, and I was a culinary. They would ask her, the kids actually asked questions. Yeah. What were the living quarters like? She answered what they were for her. I answered what they were
Oh,
for
that's
me.
cool.
And then they did the same thing with like meals. How were your meals versus these meals?
Right.
And you get an elderly guy of like 80, 70 or 80 that was in one of the wars, and he would say, well, we ate MREs and we ate this, and I'd be like, I ate out of a chow line on a plate with forks and spoons, so it was different, and the kids really enjoyed it.
Well, great education for them too. Just to,
it is
to hear the difference and see the difference.
It is. Every year they do something different.
Yeah.
That same year, that was at the grade school, and at the high school they did something different. At the high school they actually announced the military person, and they had a high school senior guy walk you in and sit you in your seat, and they said where you were stationed at, how long you were in for, what branch you were in, and where you live now.
Right.
And then they played each different military song, and when yours came on, you had to stand up. So I'm sitting there like, okay, is that mine? I haven't heard it in a long time. Is that mine? They're like, get up. I'm like, is that mine? So it was good for them to see that I had graduated from Eastland. I went to the military. You can do the same thing.
Yeah, great role model.
I try to be.
Definitely.
I try to be to all of them. I absolutely adore it. I love it. I love going to the Veterans Day programs and seeing all the hard work that the kids put in every year. And it makes my daughter proud to know that her mommy is a veteran. It makes her so proud. Yeah. So it's very humbling for me. It really is.
Yeah, that's very cool.
There was a gentleman, his wife was at another nursing home that I worked at prior to this, and he was very generous with the military people. He took and bought all of us military sweatshirts from your military rat. He bought us zip-up coats, hats, t-shirts, and actually that's where I got this shirt from, and little flags that say it on there. And he was very proud of us as military, and it was very humbling on things that people would reach out and just do for you, even though I don't ask for it, I don't want it, I don't need it, but people want to show their appreciation that way, and I think it's amazing. Amazing. Just like our wall of veterans in here in the building. I love it. I think it's amazing that we're showing support to our military veterans that are here in this facility now. They get the respect that they were military, and they deserve the respect of it.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. All right, Lucy. Anything else you can think of?
No.
Okay.
Stay strong, America.
Well, on behalf of myself, everybody at Unity Hospice, thank you so much for letting me talk to you today and get your story recorded.
Yep. It's a pleasure.